Hello everyone, today I'm going to talk about another of my favorite builds, which is super fun and powerful in both solo and group content. It's also pretty easy to put together, so you should definitely try it out. This build is an AOE crowd control build. What you see equipped here is my fire damage build. It burns all the enemies with giant fire ticks, as well as debuffs enemies, giving your entire team up to 30% more damage. Not only do enemies light on fire, preventing most of them from shooting you, but the fire also spreads to nearby enemies when they die, and it makes you very valuable in group content as a support or even a damage build. You do have to keep in mind that your gun damage is fairly low, and you have very little survivability, so you always want to be in cover. Furthermore, you can easily swap certain pieces of your skills to fit the content you're doing or your playstyle. With minor changes, you can increase your fire damage, increase your team's damage, or change your skills for more CC and start blind, EMP, foam, or even shock chain reactions that completely stop your enemies. However, you have to keep in mind that the purpose of this build is to chain status effects, mainly fire, and because of that, your status effects themselves are a tiny bit weaker or shorter on single targets. In other words, something like your foam won't last quite as long as a foam on a high-end CC build, but when played properly, your teammates can shoot the enemies with all the status effects, and then those statuses spread to other enemies, making it very useful in group content. This build is perfect if you want to play a support role that focuses on damage and CC, or if you're a Pyromaniac and want to just watch the world burn around you. Here are the pieces you need for this build. First of all, there's the Specialization. Because this is mainly a fire build rather than a CC build, you want to take the Firewall Specialization. You do get a flamethrower, which is nice, but the main reason is you get extra fire duration. You also get a shotgun, which is right here, that reduces enemies' fire resistance by 50% for 5 seconds when you shoot them. It's pretty useful. Now the weapons, since you have a few choices here. I'm currently equipped with my preferred weapons for this build, but you have a few options. For the assault rifle, we have the test subject. This comes with perfectly in sync. If you shoot an enemy and use a skill, you get 40% weapon damage for 5 seconds and 40% skill damage for 5 seconds. Now this is instant, which is technically a little bit better than capacitor for this build in my opinion. However, you could use the capacitor, which ends up giving you about 60% skill damage, but it does take a while. It's up to you really. However, the main reason I don't use the capacitor is because I actually use the Scorpio. The Scorpio actually applies its own status effects, and after 7 shots, enemies take 20% more damage from your whole team. However, the main reason is because my backpack has opportunistic. This means they all take 10% more damage from my whole team as well, on top of that. For the pistol, I run the named card custom with InSync if I run out of ammo, but you could also use the Firewall shotgun. Now for the gear. Making this build is fairly easy aside from the backpack. We use 4 pieces of Eclipse protocol for the chest, holster, gloves, and knee pads, all rolled with status effects. For the mask, we use the vial as this gives us extra damage to anyone we apply a status effect to, which is great. They take 50% of our concussion grenade damage, which for me is about 700k damage over 10 seconds. For the mods, we have skill haste on everything since that's the most useful role, and the backpack, which is the hardest piece to get. For the backpack, you have a few options, but it needs to be a golden backpack for the 10% status effect bonus right here. The problem with this backpack is that it comes with a blue core attribute, so you need to roll skill tier onto it. This makes it a very hard piece to god roll. This is the best one I've gotten so far, and it's really not even that good. The main thing you need to do for it is roll status effects and a useful talent. The talents in order from worst to best are Combined Arms, Tech Support, Shock and Awe, and Opportunistic. If possible, try to only use the last 2 based on your playstyle. Shock and Awe is the best choice if you play solo and want as much fire damage as possible, with Tech Support coming in right behind it if you want slightly more damage, but you do need to get a kill beforehand, which is not always possible. Opportunistic, however, is what I use, and this is for group content since it gives your entire team 10% more multiplicative damage, including yourself. I prefer this talent as it greatly helps with every enemy that is resistant to fire or just has a ton of health. Lastly are the skills. If you want full pyro mode, the 2 skills you want are Firestarter, Chem Launcher, and Burn Sticky. I don't use the Airburst Seeker as I find it kind of annoying and it takes too long to get to your target. You also want mods that increase your burn damage, burn duration, more ammo, or skill haste in that order. Don't put normal duration mods on it as it doesn't actually help with the burn. For your alternate skills depending on the content you're doing and the enemies you're fighting, I recommend the Jammer Pulse, the Foam Launcher, Blind or Firefly, or the Shock Trap. Those are the most useful I found, and once one enemy is affected by any of those skills, your team can shoot them to spread it to other enemies, and that's what makes this build great in group content. Now let me show you the damage numbers for my version of this build. You can get higher damage numbers with simple changes like the backpack talent, but this is more than enough to kill almost everything in group content while also buffing your whole team. As you can see, the Chem Launcher does about 260k base burn damage. And the burn sticky does about the same, although it doesn't really tell you. So let's shoot this guy real quick. As you can see, it hits about 258k, which is pretty much the same exact number as it said. And that goes and spreads to every other enemy. And during that whole time, the vial is also hitting them for about 71,000 damage. If I just shoot them once, now that brings up the damage to 305k. Now let's check it out with the shotgun as well. What you want to do is you want to buff yourself with the test subject, then shoot him. Now it's hitting 305k. Switch to the shotgun and it's instantly 338k because he has armor. Then shoot him, 372,000. And he gets extra poison damage as well. Now, that took about half of his armor, so you could just do that one more time and then named enemy is dead. And he should die fairly quickly. And there you go, that's a named enemy dead with 2 shots. Of course, I do have skill haste enabled, but that's just for testing purposes. The Chem Launcher does about the same amount of damage. An important thing to note is because the shotgun does damage to armor, you can just hold this and get more damage for your fire. But on top of that, every time you shoot him, if they have no status effects, they instantly take damage from the vial, they get some poison damage, and they take 10% more damage for your whole team. I highly recommend you guys check out this build. If you've never played a CC build or a fire build, this is really fun to use. Have fun.
guys and get him on comms.
We're inbound to your location. Coming in over the HU.